Good evening, my friends. This is Paul, and today we are here to celebrate two different things. I originally intended this to just be the best memories of 2022, not to be confused with my best games of 2022 video. That's like its own entire thing. But also, I just hit 700 subscribers the day before I started filming this. So I thought that instead of making myself have yet another huge workload of a ton of videos to work on, I just combine them into one. So we're here to celebrate 700 subscribers and the best memories of 2022. And the fact that 700 subscribers happened in 2022, it happens to be one of the best memories. So I felt like it segued pretty cool. So we will start out the video with my most memory of 2022 because I didn't want to make a specific order like I used to do on Facebook because I thought that might be a little bit unfair, especially if certain people were involved. I didn't want anyone to think I was showing favoritism. However, the last thing that I will be showing is 100% my highlight of the year. Not because I think anyone is inferior or superior, but because of how unbelievable it was that it actually was able to happen. So I decided that in order to keep things as fair as possible, I was going to put the most thing on top, the best memory on the bottom, and everything in between was going to be in alphabetical order. So hope you're all excited to see what amazing things happened to some random dweeb with long hair in the year 2022. I have very mixed feelings about this particular memory of 2022. I thought it was good enough that I wanted it to be on the list, but it was also such a mixed bag of an experience for me that I wanted it to be at the lowest spot so that people would get the impression that this was by far the worst, best memory of the year, if that makes any sense. And that was the Lenten Retreat. Now, to put this into perspective, I had not been to a retreat since 2019's Tap into Life retreat. I hadn't been to an overnight Catholic big event since 2020 when I chaperoned that high school conference. Rest in peace, because that department that puts on those conferences no longer exists. Thanks a lot, COVID. So I was definitely overdue for a time where I could be in a spiritually charged environment with a bunch of like-minded Catholic individuals. And in that matter, it succeeded, as these Catholics were conservative to a fault. Like, some of the girls were even veiling and wearing dresses to Mass, and it was bitter cold, so they must have had like really thick leggings on underneath those dresses, because how the heck did they not freeze to death? And there were a lot of opportunities for sacraments and Catholic traditions, such as Stations of the Cross, reconciliation, Eucharistic adoration. We actually had that twice because they really wanted to emphasize that the Eucharist is the source and summit of our faith, and that part of the retreat was absolutely phenomenal. However, where it faltered was that it really was a little bit too Catholic. I know that sounds sacrilegious when I say it like that, but what I mean by that is that it was so focused on providing all of these spiritual experiences that there really wasn't too much else. There were no icebreakers. There was only one small group discussion, and they divided it between guys and girls, which already makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable because I don't really like gender segregation wherever I go. And I also felt like the retreat just did not promote an attitude of fellowship and getting to know one another. I mean, it sort of happened, like say during meal times and during the one time on the retreat when they had unstructured free time where we weren't told to be silent and contemplative. I didn't get a whole lot out of the people, hence why I didn't keep in touch with a single one of them, except for one guy that sent me an email of something, but then we didn't really keep in touch after that because I really only wanted that one email and nothing else. So overall, a very forgettable experience. I'm definitely glad that I was able to get so much Catholic stuff. But at the end of the day, when you go on a retreat, you want to feel like you're having an opportunity to, yes, meditate, but also to like meet like-minded individuals who can walk with you on your faith journey. And in this particular case, I felt like I was walking alone most of the time. I hope that this excerpt from my retreat vlog can summarize things much more nicely than a version of me that is several months removed from the event. We are approaching that time of the retreat that is what I like to call the official, unofficial end, where every scheduled activity is pretty much concluded except for a handful of things on Sunday before we depart back to our homes. So right now we're just heading back to, they call it the Village Commons for some reason, where we'll do, at least I think we will, do maybe some fellowship. A lot of people will probably play games. So I think right now would probably be a relatively appropriate time for me to give my verdict on what I think of it. Gosh, I always forget where to film when I'm near a light post. I think my overall verdict is mixed. Like, I love how this retreat is very, very, very Catholic, almost to a fault. Like I said, we haven't done any icebreakers or like activities per se. Everything has been like a rosary, a mass, adoration, like lots and lots of that stuff. Which, for some, they probably love it. For some, they might say, I really need a chance to just unwind. And that's okay. But what I find that's a little bit harder to chew is the fact that I don't do well in big groups, and it seems like this retreat is especially geared towards people praying in groups. Maybe it's because, I don't know, a guy and a girl by themselves looks kind of suspicious, but that's just my natural mode, is I'm very introverted, and introverts tend to be more of like one-on-one, one-on-three, like very small groups type of people. And so that's been really hard to like constantly feel like you have to be in a caravan if you want to talk to anyone. So that's been kind of weighing me down. Other things that I don't really want to get into have been a little bit of a hassle to sort through, and I definitely have felt like, I don't usually talk this intuitively, but like my spirit has kind of been gradually lowering more and more as the retreat has gone on. So hopefully either tonight or tomorrow something will come along to give me a new perspective. But for now, I kind of give a middle of the road approach. I like all the spirituality. I definitely think there's a lot of it compared to what I'm used to at Catholic retreats. But I also definitely kind of lament the freedom that things like Subiaco did, where we could have like one-on-one conversations. But then again, that could also be because I only know one person here and all these other guys are like trying to be together. So it might still make the top 10 best memories of 2022 list, but just barely. So again, hopefully I have more positive news tomorrow, but as of now, it is Saturday night, and my feelings are kind of meh. So with that, thank you very much for watching. If I don't film anything later, I hope you all have a wonderful night, and if not, then keep the faith, stay epic, and God bless. Bye! promised myself that I would pat myself on the back if I got 200 subscribers, but I thought that if I just praised myself, some of you might think that I was bragging. Some of you who are Catholic might say, Paul, you're guilty of pride, which is one of the 7 deadly sins. And even though I really don't care because that's judgmental and I don't want to hear people who are spouting opinions instead of the truth, but regardless, I did want to find a way that came across as though I'm giving myself credit where credit is due, while at the same time not stroking my ego and thinking I'm the best person in the world. So one of my friends and also one of my patrons, Sploon Ghost, made a video for me that she wanted me to include in this video. The thing is, we had a misunderstanding as far as what the subject of the video was going to be about. I thought that I had conveyed to her that I wanted her to talk about Fall Guys, as I knew it was either going to be in my best or worst games of 2022 list, and so I asked her to have 2 different variations so that if it was in the worst games list, she'd talk about what she didn't like, and if it was in the best, she'd talk about what she did. But apparently she didn't get the hint that it was for Fall Guys and instead ended up just saying a whole bunch of compliments about me. So I figured if you guys don't want to hear me pat myself on the back, then maybe I'll take it better coming from her. And hey, you get a little bit of behind the scenes recording of what it looked like while she was drawing my current profile picture. So without further ado, take it away and stroke my ego, Sploon.
Hello everybody, or as Paul would say, hi folks. I'm Sploon, one of Paul's friends, and Paul may or may not have mentioned, however, I met Paul through Miss Peggle 101's Discord and her streams, actually. Basically, what happened was I promoted my streams a few times in her channel, and I also posted my art in her art channel, and Paul actually decided he wanted to check out the art and check out the streams. And I think it was through my streams he found my YouTube channel. And I remember in Discord he mentioned, he said, oh, I checked out your YouTube channel and it seems like you're trying to make a, be noticed with all of your speed paints and art. And I immediately said, oh no, I just like to share my creativity with others, just to make them smile. And yeah, then from there it was on one of Miss Peggle's streams that we realized we were both Catholic, and we both had very similar life beliefs, and with some, points of, disagreement, but they were minor, and that was when we really started to bond, and he started coming to my streams, and started talking on my streams. Very good conversation starter, I must admit. I kind of just sit there and wait for somebody to initiate the conversation. So Paul is a good starter for that. And he helped me establish a lot of changes. When I was doing commissions, there were some parameters he would question on, like, oh, what if I want to order more than one thing at a time? Or, oh, what if I just want this but not that? Then, and made me think about, oh, I need to, change how I, organize the commissions then. And I also need to set up what kind of boundaries I need to establish, because I had, I had forgotten that. So that was cool. He helped me technically with those kinds of things. And in addition, he was the second person online I'd met, besides Peggle, who was willing to listen to points that he majorly disagreed with and not get royally upset. At least explicitly, and actually, yeah, and instead of, reacting and saying, oh, you're banned, or oh, screw you, etc., that, the typical internet reaction, he would talk through his points and say, whoa, have you thought about this? Or, oh, that's an interesting point, I hadn't considered this. Did you know this? And, I found that really fascinating and really cool. And that it was a breath of fresh air for me, actually, because it seems everyone on the internet these days just kind of reacts violently. Oh, it even sounds, you disagree with even one thing about the LGBT community? Oh, you're a homophobe then. No, hold on. That's a separate topic. So, and the other thing that's been cool with interacting with Paul is there have been times where we've disagreed, and, we were able to talk through it. I felt very comfortable just DMing him saying, hey, Paul, I have an issue going on. I think we're in a bit of a conflict, and he would say, oh, okay, what's going on? And we would talk about it. And, every single time we've talked, we were able to come to a resolution of some sorts. And I felt that really cool. I thought that was really cool. Because I have had not as successful conversations in the past. But, and I think that's partially due to Paul's open-mindedness. He's really, even if he disagrees with people's points of view, he does appreciate hearing them and understanding where they come from. And I do greatly respect that. So, yeah. Obviously, he likes my art. Otherwise, I wouldn't be speed painting this this commission, which is he commissioned me to draw his profile picture. And yeah, it was a really unique commission for me because it was the first human face, like with human proportions, I had drawn in about a whole year. So I needed a refresher on that. And I thought it was a unique combination of epic and his face and the Rumpelstiltskin dagger. I thought that was cool. And then the banner with the Catholic Heart Work Camp. So it was just a really unique combination of things. And it was also the first time Paul was aware that he had messy hair, which I just casually pointed out, I was like, oh yeah, it's really frizzy, and then, a bit messy. And, so, you never know what something like that can do for a person. That's just one thing, so. But yeah, and it also, yeah, so he's just been a great person to hang around and talk with. So, yeah, I don't really have much else to say. Everything else I would say has just been a repeat. And yeah, it's a great day to have a great day, or as Paul would say, keep the faith, stay epic, and God bless.
When I was growing up, I only had 2 games, and those games were Super Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie. And one of those games has aged better in my mind than another, as you can probably guess. When Banjo and Kazooie were announced as DLC for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, that was one of the greatest moments in gaming that I had ever witnessed. In fact, I would even dare to say it's one of the top 10 best memories of my life. Probably the best memory if we're going by strictly memories and not like Catholic-themed memories. So I thought that this was like an opportunity for perhaps more Banjo to be on the Switch, or at the very least on Nintendo's next console, now that it's been established that Microsoft is okay with letting their characters back onto the system where they originated from. And so when Nintendo announced that Nintendo 64 games were coming to the Switch Online expansion pack, the game that I was the most excited to see was none other than Banjo-Kazooie finally being back on a Nintendo system for the first time since 1998. Yes, it has had HD remasters on the Xbox systems, but this is the first time it's returned to the Nintendo 64, and it's the original version with the walking N logo, the Nintendo references, the Game Boy startup screen. It doesn't have a lot of the quality of life touch-ups that the Xbox versions did, but at least it does have save states. And apparently there were certain problems that the Xbox version introduced that you no longer have to put up with. But who cares about all that? For me, it's an opportunity to relive one of the greatest moments of nostalgia wherever I want, as long as there's internet, because it's a Switch Online game. Basically, it's one of my favorite games now in the palm of my hands, and I'm at a loss for words as to how best to proceed from here. So how about I just say, guys, if you have the Switch Online expansion pack, what are you waiting for? Banjo-Kazooie is awesome. It hasn't aged perfectly, but that's what my review is for, so you can check that out if you want a more detailed analysis. I definitely recommend a notebook if you're going to play it, but it's definitely one of the better Nintendo 64 3D platformers, and certainly one of the best looking ones, so at least give it a try. If you don't like it, at least you didn't pay any extra money for it. I had an absolute blast meeting Esabelle this year, but we'll talk about that later on this list. For now, I want to talk about a particular phone call I got near the end of the trip that made it all the more of a worthwhile experience. And that was my friends Dan and Evelyn called, and at the time, they were about to have a baby, and they wanted to appoint me as the godfather to their upcoming son. And of course, I said yes, because the duty of a godfather is to make sure that the child gets raised in the faith if something happens to the parents, and also just to check in with the parents and make sure they're raising the kid to Catholic standards. I know that godfathers exist in other religions as well, but they specifically wanted me to raise the child as a Catholic because I myself am a practicing Catholic, which for those of you that don't know, it just means I try my best to be Catholic. I'm not just one of those, hey, I say I'm Catholic, but I disagree with some of the doctrines kind of thing. So I got to stand up during the kid's baptism. I got to hold up the baptismal candle. All I basically said was, I will, when asked if I was willing to take my duty seriously, and I got to bring up the gifts. But it still was great that St. Scholastica was willing to record the entire Mass so that I could relive that moment exactly as it was, as opposed to trying to embellish the details in my head, which is so rare. Like, I wish I could do that for the mission trip, like just have literally everything recorded. And so I just am really glad that I have the opportunity to help someone else be raised in the faith, to be able to say that I, in a manner of speaking, have a kid, even if it's not my biological kid, and also just a great opportunity to see them again, because man, I was starting to miss them a lot.
I baptize you in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
On last year's list, I mentioned that I was interning at Anytime Fitness. Well, early in 2022, I believe it was either February or March, my boss officially decided to hire me. So now I have been an employee at Anytime Fitness for almost a year now. All I really do is janitorial stuff. I don't really handle anything involving the office or signing up the members. I'm basically there to clean. Sometimes I greet the customers and help them out if they have problems, but for the most part, it's a very task-oriented job, and I like it like that. I don't really like having a job that's fast-paced and has a lot of commotion. In fact, whenever my boss has me work on the weekends, she always says I can pick any time I want to work, and I always tell her whenever it's quiet. And thankfully, this job is for the most part relatively quiet. It definitely has its days where it's busier than others. But I have the option if I want to just take things at my own pace and not have to talk to anyone. In fact, I'm encouraged not to when they're in their workouts. But even outside of all of that quiet time fulfilled, I also really like the fact that it's a very routine and repetitious job, which I know sounds like a nightmare for some of you more intuitive and perceiving types. But to me, I really like being able to have a checklist of duties that I have to complete. And sometimes my coworkers will have jobs that don't need to be done twice in a row. So then my manager might say, well, Paul, you don't need to do this today. So it very much doesn't rely on me making any kind of guesswork. It's all about following directions. So it's basically a job that was more or less tailor-made to me. Granted, it probably could pay a little bit more, but at least I have a job, which is more than what a lot of people can say. So I'm very thankful that the boss took a gamble and decided to keep me on, and I hope that I can continue working here for several more years to come. In last year's video, I talked about how happy I was that I had another niece. My other niece was born in 2020, but I didn't make a best memories list for that year, so that's why I didn't mention her. But yes, through 2020 and 2021, my brothers and my sisters-in-law graced me with two nieces. And in 2022, the trend continued, and now I have a nephew. Oh, there's not too much to say because, like, he's not that old. Like, he was only born, like, I think a month ago as of the time of this recording. So, haven't really had a whole lot of interactions. He's a pretty chill kid. Like, I haven't really seen him cry at all. He was totally fine with me holding him. He didn't really squirm or struggle or anything like that. He didn't really look at me either, but at that age, I don't really care. I know that if he's anything like how my niece has turned out to be, he's going to be a fine young man someday. So I'm just happy that my family line can continue. I don't particularly care that he was a boy. Like, I would have been okay no matter what gender he was. I'm just happy that I have another niece or a nephew. So I don't want any of you thinking, well, it's about time I had a nephew. No, it's more like I'm really glad that my siblings and my siblings-in-law are willing to procreate and that there's respectful pro-life, pro-family people out there, which I really hope more people can realize that children are a blessing, not a burden. At this point in the video, there's going to be spoilers for the video game AI the Somnium Files Nirvana Initiative, so I will put a timestamp on the screen. If you want to know absolutely nothing about the game, then you can skip to the next item on the list, or if you're one of my friends who's a non-gamer, you can also just skip past this part. Okay, so for the rest of you that stuck around, Nirvana Initiative is honestly one of the coolest stories I have ever experienced in a video game. I really love the twist. Hope you got the spoiler warning because I'm about to spoil what the twist is. So if you didn't read it before, here's your last chance before I ruin everything. Okay, so for those of you that stuck around, Nirvana Initiative is told out of order. You're given a timeline of how the events play out, and sometimes you can make decisions to, like, get more information in an alternate reality. But then you're told that what you thought was taking place a couple of days apart were actually told 6 years apart. And they did other little tricks to make you think that you were playing things in chronological order when you were actually leaping all over the place in time-space. So that basically just more or less doubled the length of an already long game, so that when you go back and play it with the true timeline, then you can see the game as it is, and you're like, wow, this writing is incredible! But no game is complete without actually having good gameplay to back it up, and Nirvana Initiative is a continuation of what made AI the Somnium Files so great, while at the same time carving its own identity with a mostly standalone story. Most of the voice actors returned, but they don't require an overabundance of lore from the previous game to know what's going on here. I really like the voice acting. I thought that was spectacular, if not better than how it was in the first game. Rest in peace, Billy Kametz, for voicing the villain. Oh, there goes my phone. And he did an absolutely amazing job as his final role ever. Thank you, phone. I'm well aware. But what makes the game especially amazing to me is that it has references to Zero Escape, which is another series that the creators of this franchise made. In fact, one of the post-game surprises is that you can actually play through the first escape sequence of 999 as the protagonist of Nirvana Initiative, and she says all of the lines that the protagonist in 999 did, but in her own voice, and with he, him pronouns replaced by female ones. So that alone made me just absolutely almost scream in joy, saying, what the heck is this? But it also has a nice hopeful redemption arc that maybe the Zero Escape games will come on the Switch someday, and it also gives me hope that maybe we will get an even cooler narrative twist from this director if he's allowed to have more free reign now that he's no longer burdened by the Zero Escape trilogy. This year, I was in quite the financial difficulty. At one point, I even had to sell most of my video games in order to avoid going bankrupt and having to get a loan from the bank. So I had to resort to a couple of desperate measures to make sure that I was able to still be able to pay my bills and support my family. And one of those measures was starting a Patreon. Now, whether or not I was successful at that Patreon is debatable. But one thing that cannot be denied is that it was a godsend that within the first, I think it was 2 weeks after I started the Patreon, I already had 3 supporters, and those are Matthew Rakowski, Sploon Ghost, and Splatcat. They have been supporting me financially for almost as long as I've had the Patreon, and it all adds up, every little bit, and hopefully I've been able to give back to them. They have had quite the backlog, so hopefully they get onto that, especially if they watch this video. Maybe that can be their reminder. But I just wanted to say how happy I was that not only did they support me, but I've also had the opportunity to video chat with every single one of them. And because there's only 3 at the moment, I was able to really feel like I was personalizing the Patreon experience for them, that I could say, what is it that you would like to see since you're paying premium money for something that's supposed to be free? And so they've given me insights into like, oh, that could be a project I could undertake. And it's also given me permission to blab more about certain things that I like that the regular channel wouldn't want to hear about. So I just can't thank them enough for getting me out of so many binds, and hopefully you guys will check out their channels. Links will be in the description so that you can follow them yourselves if they have a channel to follow. And I also just want to be thankful for just the people that I met in general, thanks to Discord and streaming. Like Sploon Ghost and Splatcat, even before they were patrons, they were streamers, and they also came to my live streams. I don't know how they put up with them. And I was about to boycott streaming altogether when the 2 of them started a petition to get me to continue streaming. And so I know getting all touchy-feely like this is a bit embarrassing, but I'm really thankful that they don't find me to be a waste of time. Oh wait! This video is supposed to be patting myself on the back, so the fact that I got people petitioning me to get to live stream again, well, there you go, guys. I just did it, and I wasn't even trying, so hopefully that makes up for any of you that thought I might have been guilty of one of the 7 deadly sins. Last year, I was blessed to be in the Discord and streaming community of Miss Peggle. Whether or not she and I are actually friends is a hotly debated topic, even among people that know both of us. But one thing that absolutely cannot be denied about her is that she really, really, really knows what I like and wants to make sure that I am very, very happy with her efforts. So she managed, I don't know how she did it, she managed to keep this completely secret from me, but she actually streamed on my birthday. It was like a 5-hour stream too. 3 of my favorite games back to back. And those games were Breath of the Wild, followed by Banjo-Kazooie, and finished up with 999, which eventually turned into a whole stream, and she ended up finishing the game, and then she got her fiance into it, and then he finished the game. They're still taking their sweet time getting into Virtue's Last Reward. In his case, it's due to technical difficulties. In her case, I don't know what it is. Probably Danganronpa fangirlism. And she gave me permission to highlight a particular blunder that she made in one of the earliest escape rooms. And while I don't want to take up too much time talking about 999 itself, because it didn't come out in 2022, I want to thank her for continuing to be a streamer that is fun to watch at times, but also just having one of the coolest birthday presents I've ever received, and after my birthday stream to continue to stream the game and be mind blown and eventually finish the whole series and just make me very, very happy that I turned years old this year.
5th one from the top. 2, 3, 5. 3rd one from the right.
You may click everywhere. Click everywhere. I found it.
One of the last items on my bucket list that I wrote when I was a teenager, no, not the Stanley Parable reassurance bucket, was going to a water park now that I had overcome my aquaphobia. And thankfully, in 2022, that's exactly what happened. And it proved to be just about as good as I expected. It didn't have like a big ride or roller coaster kind of thing, but I think that's more of what you would see in an outdoor water park. But still, it was a really huge place. We got to be splashed by the giant bucket. No, not that bucket. We got to go down the hard drop, and there was this huge tube slide that we went down. It was even great to be able to talk to people. And I think it was easier to talk to the people there than it would normally be for me to approach strangers in a public area, because everyone there was also in a swimsuit. And so I guess it didn't feel awkward because literally everyone is there for the same thing, and that was to get wet. And so it made it easier to talk about the nature of getting wet. And even I was even able to persuade a couple of people that it wasn't as scary as they thought, and maybe they should join me on the tube, and maybe having someone there to reassure them would help. And some of them legitimately said yeah, that really helped me prepare much better. So I have a couple of video clips. If you are averse to swimsuits, you might want to skip to yet another timestamp that I will edit on. But if not, I hope that you really like point of view views of the water slide, because I want to show you guys exactly what it looked like. Well, almost exactly what it looked like, because I had my eyes closed. But still, you can sort of get an experience of what I did every time I went down the hard drop ride.
Three, two, one, launch! Three, two, one, launch!
I hope my non-gaming audience doesn't skip this part, because even though I'm yet again about to talk about a video game, this particular video game has significance outside of the game that I am so thankful for, that I really want people who skipped out on my best games of 2022 list to be able to experience. So the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe came out in 2022, and it's a fantastic game. It brilliantly brings over the original experience to the Switch, while at the same time introducing a stupid amount of new content. In my personal opinion, the new content is 10 times better and much funnier than the original game. But it still manages to fit that unique style of self-aware, self-deprecating humor that also likes to poke fun of the gaming industry and sequels in general. Now, you might be wondering, if you're in my audience that doesn't like games, okay, get to the point. Why should we be interested in a game on your list of memories, Paul? And that's because I actually got one of the voice actors from the game to do a bit for my best games list. And I just feel so honored that he was the voice of the game. He was the one that made the game so funny. And has, even now, even after countless times of replaying those gags, it can still get me to just burst out chuckling and pass the days if I'm having a hard day at work. And I just wanted all of you to get to experience what he said in that video and just say, wow, Paul, you got a celebrity on your channel. So if I can get him, of all people, maybe I can get other genuine voice actor celebrities to be on my channel. So without further ado, take it away, Kevin Brighting.
Hold on. Only number 2? Paul, do you realize what a scandal this is? Think about the reception of the original Stanley Parable. It was a groundbreaking title in 2013, and the new Ultra Deluxe version's new content has gone above and beyond to give the fans exactly what they want, while keeping the entire original package intact. You might even say it's 2 games in one, and yet you've had the audacity to place it at number 2? I bet your number 1 game is some overpriced piece of nonsense. Ultra Deluxe should be the standard in gaming sequels and gaming in general. Well, no matter. Bucketless people like yourself have no taste in list-making. Paul's audience, if you're watching this right now, turn off your devices. Don't entertain his delusions of entertainment any longer. It's not like he ever asks for likes or subscribers anyway. Well, this has been a colossal waste of my time. Maybe I should go and replay the new content in Ultra Deluxe and re-immerse myself in the Hall of Memories to go back to a time when the Stanley Parable was appreciated for the masterpiece it's truly meant to be.
I want you guys to take a good look at the picture that's currently on the screen, covering up my wonderful shirt, and tell me what is wrong with that picture. I'll give you a few seconds just in case you're the type that is more intuitive and not as observant of your surroundings. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, time's up. The answer is that I was wearing a glove. You may have also noticed that during a lot of the videos that I made during 2021 and the first half of 2022, I would primarily use my right hand, and not just because I'm right-handed. That was a deliberate decision. And whenever I would use my left hand, you notice that I would either hold it in a ball or like face it away from the camera. And at the time, I was a bit too worried of telling you guys what was going on for varying reasons. But I'm finally willing to tell the true story of why it was that I covered up my hand. And that was because I had a wart infestation. And it affected most of my left hand, a little bit of my right, but not as badly, and some of my feet as well. And so I had to go through really extensive and really painful immunotherapy at the dermatologist. And it probably contributed a little bit to my financial decline, as I had to take like 2 days off of work every 2 weeks. And one of my friends even had to do a pity phone call so that her words could distract me from the aftermath of the pain. And it wasn't fun, but I would still recommend it to anyone who has warts, because the alternative is that they just come back and get worse, or they continue getting annoying because they're incredibly stubborn, and because it's the result of a virus within the body, just biting them off or chomping them off with your teeth just isn't going to do any good. So you might as well get some professional help. Even though it was incredibly painful, one of the worst things I've ever went through in my life, it was still such a relief to finally be able to show my hands and say, look guys, they're clean. I guess this is probably how the people in Jesus' time felt when they had all those physical ailments, like the people with leprosy, when they realized, oh my gosh, my skin is back to normal. So I just want to say that the dermatologist was essentially like a godsend to me. So maybe Jesus was like giving his blessings toward that particular doctor. So after 1.5 years, I can finally show my hands again. I don't know why I would need to show my left hand a whole lot, but the fact that I still can't even believe it. Whenever I stroke my ring finger on my left hand, I'm still just like in doubt that it's actually a normal looking ring finger. That's how long it was that I had such a bad infestation. But now that it's over, hopefully all of that immuno stuff pumped into my blood, literally, is going to make it so that for the rest of my life, I don't have to put up with any of that. And if they ever do come back, or if I have another skin condition, I know exactly who to refer myself to.
Oh my gosh. My gosh, it's so good to meet you.
Oh, great.
Oh my gosh, you're so light.
I know, well, my purse is adding weight too. I'm even lighter without that.
Oh. Finally.
Oh, my ears.
The cat ears that you said were the souvenir, huh?
Well, my logo, hello!
And finally, finally, we're at the #1 memory of the year, right as my voice is starting to get sore, so I better hurry this up. I don't want anyone to think that if you were involved in one of the previous memories that I think you were not as cool as Esabelle or that you're an inferior friend or anything like that. I just think that this is the #1 memory of the year, not only because it was so much fun and an amazing time, but because it was such an enormous amount of effort and once-in-a-lifetime opportunities that the other stuff probably could happen, but this one is more like it was so unlikely, but yet it still happened, and part of me is still amazed that it actually did work. And so watching my vlog sort of helps me realize, yeah, that was a real thing. That wasn't just a figment of my imagination. And she seems to agree with me, as literally as I was filming this video, she sent me an email with her own thoughts on the trip. So before I get into those, I just want to say a couple of my highlights, which honestly, we didn't do much, so there's not a whole lot of highlights to talk about, but she and I have known each other since 2020. As in her words, in one of my previous videos, one of the few good things that came out of the pandemic. And she's just been an absolute blast to talk about with psychological stuff, sometimes to hear me out with my problems. And I feel like she's just a fun, regular person to talk on the phone with, because I have surprisingly few friends that talk on the phone with me on a semi-regular basis. And I also really appreciate how she was willing to pay for all of our meals and that we were able to go to the water park. Well, a mini water park, because the one we wanted to go to was closed. And she brought her VR set. So those are some of the biggest things. We even filmed a video on her channel. I hope, well, I don't want to say I hope you don't check it out, because, you know, I do think that she deserves way more love than my channel does. So please, if you want to support me, go support her. It's like a 2-in-1 deal. But what I'm trying to say is, while we were on the vacation, we also did a collab on her channel, and the way I acted on that collab made a couple of people think I was a different Myers-Briggs type than I actually am. But hey, we're all able to evolve, and I think some people believe that a pre-evolution state is your type, but that's a different story. For my non-Myers-Briggs audience, I don't want to confuse you too much. Bottom line is, we met each other through each other's YouTube channels. And then we talked on Twitter. And then that led to talking on the phone. Still haven't done a video chat, but at least we met up in person. And I can't even believe that happened. That's almost to the level of unbelievable as when I got to re-meet Claire at NCYC, or when I saw the Minnesota people again on my 3rd mission trip. Just going on the mission trips at all, having a miraculous healing. It is up there with the level of amazing odds that God managed to orchestrate thanks to us cooperating with our free will. And I do truly think that this is ordained by God, as I feel like it will subconsciously increase my faith and make me realize that impossible dreams and impossible prayers can, in fact, come through with enough persevering and enough thought put into them. And on her end, well, I'll let her do the talking. So I'm going to go ahead and let her close out the video. So I hope you all enjoyed this walk through memory lane with me. Well, not literally a walk, but you know what I mean. And until the next time, remember to keep the faith, stay epic, and God bless. Bye for now. Take it away, Esabelle.
Hey everyone, if you have been around Paul's channel recently, then you know that I am Esabelle, one of Paul's YouTuber friends. And finally, this past year, we realized our dream of being able to visit each other. It was so lovely that he also brought his friend Teresa along. She is so warm and so charming. And we had a lot of fun laughing and hopefully not hurting Paul's ears too badly whenever we were just acting like very happy, excitable women the whole time. But anyway, it was so wonderful seeing him this past August. And, let's see. Paul wanted me to talk about the experience, and he specifically said if there was any kind of low light that I should mention it. Well, Paul, since you wanted me to mention any kind of low light, really, the lowest part of the trip, let's just get this out of the way now. The lowest part was just the fact that, well, I'm busy kind of all the time, and I really wasn't able to take a break just to focus on the visit. So I was hanging out by day. I would be working at night and normally not get as much sleep as I wanted to. And there were days I was like, do I seem like a normal functioning human being? I really don't know because I did not sleep enough. And one of the things that Paul and I really wanted to do was we wanted to go to a water park together. Now, we did have a little complication where the water park that we had expected to go to had changed its hours sometime during COVID, and it was closed whenever we got there, but luckily there was a newly refurbished pool that was basically a mini water park, and whenever we actually got to the pool that we did swim at, Paul was like, wow, I'm even more excited for this than the other one. We ended up having such a good time. If you've been around Paul's channel, you know that he's really into body positivity. It was just a very non-judgmental, friendly, easy time to just hang out, all three of us. I highly recommend that you watch the vlog that Paul made on his channel. If you haven't seen it already, it was wonderful. Well, I did finally get to show them a little bit of what my world is like here in Oklahoma. They were only here over the weekend, well, a little bit longer than the standard weekend. Still not quite enough time to get into everything, and it was terribly hot. Not the greatest time to have them walking around in the heat, so I was not about to do that to them. Otherwise, I would have shown them my alma mater, the University of Oklahoma, if I've been able to. But we still got a lot of good time in. I did let them see the mall. We went and got bubble tea at the mall. My choker is off kilter. 1 second. Anyway, there were a lot of meaningful moments whenever we were there. There were times whenever we just talk, and we just laugh about stuff and just talk about commonalities that we have and similar values that we have. We also did get to do What Would You Rather, but we did get to know each other, but it was also kind of activity at the same time, so that was great, like a mixture of conversation and activity. Just the conversation that we had even off camera was just really meaningful to spend time with really good Christian people. This is going to sound a little funny. One of the most meaningful moments, or at least one of the most symbolic moments to me during this trip, whenever we were trying to decide where to go eat breakfast one morning, Teresa and I are both into a lot of different foods and wanting to try new things, and there's this really great Thai restaurant. We were like, yeah, let's go. I love the Thai food, and she wanted to try it. Paul, on the other hand, well, if you know Paul, he doesn't like trying new things or new experiences, and he'd rather just go to McDonald's. Well, their Thai restaurant wasn't quite open yet. It was a bit early. What we decided to do was compromise, is before the Thai restaurant opened, since we had to wait anyway, we would go to McDonald's, which was literally just across the street from the Thai restaurant. So it was perfect location for all of this. We went and took him to McDonald's. He got what he wanted, his usual. We headed over to the Thai restaurant and then had breakfast there. It really doesn't seem like a big event. It was just breakfast. But I really appreciated the fact that we were able to communicate so maturely and in such a healthy way and in such a meaningful way that allowed us to have a good time, even despite the fact that Paul doesn't like new things, Teresa and I do. We can be so different and yet still get along so well because we were able to relate to each other in a mature, healthy manner. In today's society, where it seems like if you don't agree already, then you need to get out of my life, you need to be quiet. I'm thinking of a lot of political spectrums, even religious spectrums, or even just smaller values than that I've heard argued about. It's really nice to know that there are still people out there that you can have disagreements with, but disagreeing does not mean that you don't love and care about each other. And in that moment, kind of show me that that's still alive. Thank you so much, Paul and Teresa, for coming for the visit. I really look forward to seeing both of you again at some point. I know I'll be talking to you guys sooner than I will be seeing you guys. And Paul, I just got a text from you before I started filming saying that you reached 700 subscribers. Congratulations, you deserve it. And I guess I'll talk to you later. I have to end this somewhere. I will yammer like a fool if I don't stop this somewhere. Bye!